Hi, my name's Keith Cooper, and in this video I'm looking at why you would want to buy a big printer like this. Now this is an Epson P7500 that I'm currently testing for a review. It's a very nice printer. It's a big printer. I get a lot of people ask about, I'd like to make big prints. Should I get a large printer? There are lots of other things to ask about, purely whether you've got enough space or not, and these things are big. Now, starting up with the obvious one, how much does one of these things cost? Well, this one is in the UK about £3,000, with including taxes. Now, 3,000, that's quite a lot. If it's a bit too much, well, you can still get the Epson P7000, which I've tested in considerable detail for an earlier review a few years ago. Now, it's not one that I've got a video of, but it's one of my detailed written reviews. And the written reviews go back nigh 20 years. The videos go back barely 2 years. So there's a lot of stuff that I don't yet have video versions of. So if you want to find out some more, delve into that. Now, I've got some articles as well concerning aspects of whether you want a big printer, the problems of big printers and the benefits of big printers. But I'll put links to all of that stuff in the notes with this video, so you can always follow it up if need be. Please do ask questions. I do appreciate it. And subscribe to the channel as well. I always forget to mention that. But big printer like this. Okay, we've got enough space. We've got it in. What about the economics of running it? Well, so it costs a few thousand to get started. It comes with ink, quite a reasonable amount of ink. And because of the size of the ink cartridges, the inks are effectively cheaper. You pay less per print, square inch, square metre, whatever of print, for ink costs than you would on smaller printers. How big are the cartridges? Well, this is a spare cartridge I have for this one. This is light grey, which is probably going to be the next one to run out on this. Although I say run out, this weighs a fair bit. There is 700 millilitres of ink in here. So that's about 1.5 pints of ink. That's a lot of ink. This will last a long while. Now, they just slot in the bottom here and away you go. Now, you do have to remember to shake these, take them out, give them a bit of a shake every 6 months or so, because the inks in printers like this, even if you use them quite a lot, it does stay around for a while. You're unlikely to get through inks like this very quickly. If you are, then you've got lots of prints, and you know why you've got a large printer. And that's the main thing about these printers. Buy yourself a desktop printer, leave it a few weeks because you don't feel like printing, no problem at all. Printer like this needs using every week. These printers are designed for everyday use. Leave them for a few weeks unattended. You won't get problems from it, but it won't contribute to the long-term reliability of the printer. Now, this one here, you can take this panel off, and the front here slides off. There's a cleaning mode, and you can actually get in and you can clean all the parts of the printer. And there's access to the print head at the back here, so you can clean the print head as well. Useful stuff, certainly if you're using media like canvas or cotton fibre, art papers, where they generate dust. You can keep the insides clean. Certainly makes a big difference for the reliability of your printer. While talking about reliability of printers, I have to mention second-hand printers. Second-hand large format printers like this are a similar matter to buying cheap second-hand cars. The benefit is that one of these won't, if it's faulty, won't drive you into a ditch or something else. These are expensive to repair. The parts are not cheap, the labour is not cheap. If you can find someone to actually come out and repair it. So be very wary about buying second-hand printers unless you can see it working and you trust the person you're getting it off. But even then, be careful, because it's possible to see impending faults on printers like this which simply won't show up on casual inspection. and that will be an expensive repair down the way, and you don't get warranties. That's the important bit as well. And as I say, the ink's cheaper to use, but the cartridges are big. I don't know how much these cost. They vary around the world, so you'll need to look up your local prices. Now this obviously is a Epson printer. Canon version of this would be the Pro 2100. Follows on, it's virtually identical to the Pro 2000 that I've got a very detailed review of, one of my written reviews again because it's a few years ago. Another excellent printer of similar size to this. Indeed, it fitted in the same space when I did the review of it a few years ago. Once again, Canon printers, be wary of the costs of maintenance. You may see things about saying, oh, Canon printers, you can simply replace the print heads. Simply replace the print heads at a few £100 a shot. Get it wrong and the print head didn't fix the problem, cost you another few £100 to sort it out. They also use up a lot of ink in the process. So just because these don't have replaceable print heads doesn't mean there's any significance. It's simply not a feature I would use to differentiate whether I was going to get a Canon printer or an Epson printer. Some people seem to read far more into it than others. I don't. I've used both. I've owned both personally, and I don't see a problem with either approach. Now, ink. It will get through it. You'll use up a fair bit of ink. What about paper? Well, one of the benefits of these printers is that they properly support roll paper. By properly support, I mean they have a powered roller. You don't have to trim the paper yourself. There's a cutter built in. So it's a lot easier to use. You will end up generating lots of scrap bits of paper from roll paper. Now, if the expense of this and the waste concerns you, then perhaps think about getting a smaller printer and use sheets, because you don't use roll paper to save paper. You use roll paper because you need the size or you need certain other features that roll paper gives you over sheets. It is not the economy that some people think it is. Now, I know some people buy printers like the P700, P900, think, oh, I can use roll paper in them. If I wanted roll paper and I wanted a 17-inch printer, I would not choose the P900. I would use the P5000, also still available, 17-inch printer, really nice printer with a powered roller. Once again, different league. The P900 I can lift up casual, I can lift it up, hold it up with one hand. The P5000 I need two people to move. It is heavy. Big printers like this are heavy. They're built for solidity. This has got lots of metal in it. Smaller printers tend to be plastic. Now that's not necessarily a problem, but it's because they're aimed at lighter use. Notice I come back again to amount of use. And it is the amount of use that you give the printer and what you can use it for, which is really should be a key factor in deciding whether you want a bigger printer like this or whether you're going to pay someone else to do large prints for you. Now, I'll come back to that later as to the benefits of having your own printer. But what about actually using the printer? Well, I've been testing it here. I've been driving the printer from an old version of Photoshop on my Mac laptop here. And the Mac upstairs that I use drives this perfectly well. Been using Photoshop on it, newer version on the one upstairs, old version here. You can use the Epson print layout software. If you really want, there are specialist software drivers, RIPs, available for printers like this. I've got a copy of the Mirage RIP to have a look at with this. I would say that if you want to use a RIP and you want to spend this money on that software, know the reasons you're going to get it. Now, I'll come back to that when I actually look at some different software, such as Mirage for driving this. But I would say that the printer works fine using direct from Photoshop, or even just using the as I say, Epson print layout, which is very good software, works well for black and white and colour. So that's how I'm going to print it. Oh yeah, the one other bit about cost of print. If you're buying a printer, take out the extended warranty. If your printer goes wrong after 3 years and you need to get somebody to come out and you haven't got it covered on the warranty, it's going to cost you a lot. It's quite possible for the repair costs to start approaching what you'd pay for a new printer. And that's a printer that hasn't had several years of use. In fact, these printers typically they are used enough that people would work out the finances on how they're going to cover a printer like this on usage over 3-4 years. Any usage beyond 3-4 years is a bonus. You factor that into your costs and work out how much you're going to pay, how much you're going to outlay for different things like that, and how much you're going to get from the printer. And here it comes back to the economics of big printers. Yep, there's a big upfront cost. Eventually, there's a cost in ink. The ink per unit area is obviously, ink costs are lower, but there is still a cost that comes for it. So are you going to use the printer enough to get a return on it if you're looking to sell prints? If you're looking on doing lots of prints and just having a stock of prints, do consider where you're going to store them. I've got some old map drawers where I can lay prints out flat, fair sized prints in those, but you will quickly run out of space. And prints, large prints, you do need space, because large prints, and this is just a small test print done on this one here, they need handling with care. They're easy to damage. If you're looking at prints that you're going to sell, you really don't want ding corners on them and other things like that. You need to handle them carefully. So wash your hands before using it, or even cotton gloves if you have problems with it, so not to mark the surfaces of prints. Remember, just marking a print, you might think, well, that's all right, to hide it behind the framing or something like that. But if you're selling a print, you've got to consider what market you're aiming at and whether you're selling seconds. Now, I scrap most of these. Test stuff like this. If you've got, you know, people with kids, then the back surfaces of these are great for scribbling on an artwork. Big sheets of paper, give them away, find a use for them, or recycle them. But you will generate waste with a big printer like this. It's not a problem. It just comes with the territory, as it were. I said, would you get enough use for it? What are you going to do with the prints? The real big question that I ask most people who ask me, they come to, the question they ask is, where can I sell my prints? Now, I've got lots of videos looking at the business side of photography, selling prints, exhibitions, what you can sell, how you can sell, and things like that. But the question is the wrong question. It is not where can I sell my prints, but who wants my prints? And that's the key to marketing, is finding out who actually wants your prints. Because if you don't know who wants your prints, you are going to end up with an awful lot of paper around the place very quickly. You've got to have a reason for doing it. Now, you may have, you think of, oh, well, hang on, I've got this great printer, really high quality printer. How about I start doing prints for other people? Well, not a problem. It's an interesting business because it's one of those businesses where, look for the prices, it's in some areas very much price driven. Now, if you go into a price driven business and you're not factoring in your time and all the other stuff about fulfillment, shipment, shipping and things, if you're not working that out, then you're going to have not a profitable business. You're going to have a paid hobby, and probably a hobby that actually maybe costs you money if you don't work it out properly. You need to know what you're going to do with all the stuff that comes out of a big printer like this, because remember, it needs using regularly. Okay, do some prints for people at photo clubs. How long do you think the people you know at your local photo club are going to need large prints before they start saying, well, I'd like a big print, but I can't afford it, or I haven't got any more space on my walls to put the prints up? You've got to, it's about the business side. So a lot of people superficially think, like a printer like this, all the big prints I'd be able to do. Well, you do have to consider your photography as well, because making big prints puts different requirements on every aspect of your photography workflow. Now, I've covered this in quite a few other videos, but in general, you need much higher quality images, quality both from what they are, what they're of, what they mean, to actual technical quality. You need more quality to make a bigger print. It is not a matter of just taking something that looks small, printing it big and thinking, whoa, that looks good. If you're very, very lucky, it may work. But often A larger print will just show problems. And by larger print, I don't mean A4, A3, I'm talking A2, roll paper, big prints, up to the limit of the size the printer can make. Which in this one, it's quite big, so this is 24-inch roll paper, so I can make big, long panoramic shots, print those. No problem at all with it. I get some great results out of it, but it's a nice printer. You'll also need, if you're interested in quality, you'll need to look at profiling. Now that either means making your own ICC profiles or getting them made. Now, some paper suppliers do actually supply profiles, ICC profiles, for the media that they supply for printers like this. Definitely worth looking at, because making your own profiles is not a trivial matter. It's not difficult, but it's an expense you may not want. And there are an awful lot of auxiliary expenses you can attach to having a printer like this quite easily. Just keeping it running, keeping it used, everything like that. If you are running a print service for other people, though, the big problem, and the reason I never really did this, even when I had the big printers here, the really big printers, bigger than this, was that there is only so much printing of other people's photography that I don't much care for, that I'm happy to print. So I did occasionally large pictures for a friend of mine that did wedding photography. I would say zero interest. I have negative interest in doing wedding photography. Now, give me a good image and I can probably make a good print. Do that once, I'll take it as a challenge. Do it twice, yeah, that's okay. I'm going to make sure I charge you properly for it. Ask me to do 20 of them and I'm going to find you someone else to do the printing for you. I just have no interest in the subject whatsoever. It's why Northlight Images, it's why I'm an architectural and industrial photographer. I do photograph people, but they're typically digging holes in the ground or wearing high-vis jackets or operating machinery. I don't do stuff where I deal with the public. And if you do think of using your newfound printer to produce prints for the general public, then if you've never worked with dealing with the public before, then boy, you're in for an awakening. It never goes well. It may for a while, but you'll quickly learn to, well, I don't know. I admire wedding photographers and portrait photographers for the work they do. I can definitely admire skillful portrait photography. It's not something I'm interested in, but I can admire the skills. I also admire the people wrangling side of it. It's why if we do have to do any people photography, and I do as part of the business occasionally, often Karen comes along with me because she's far better at handling people than I am for this. I tend to get a bit impatient and you there, move over there, as opposed to, excuse me, would you mind moving and things. Yeah, anyway, but that's the photography business, not printing. Another bit about that, if you do print for other people, you need to ship them, the cost of shipping, framing, a whole area we won't get into. Now, if that sounds like I'm putting a bit of a downer on owning a big printer, then maybe I am. However, I think owning large printers and doing the printer testing I've done has made a significant contribution to the range, the quality of my photography. I have learnt so much about different aspects of photography by printing large or printing at all that it is absolutely worthwhile. Now, if you've got more money than me, buy one, enjoy it, use it, and accept it's expensive. If you look at the costs of one of these compared to, say, the costs of a even not that great classic car, then one of these suddenly doesn't look quite so expensive. So what I would say is that please do think about buying a large format printer. They are absolutely great. I've got some beautiful prints I've made with this. I'm going to be doing more videos and stuff looking at this printer and some of the prints I've made for it. Really chuffed, really happy with the prints I've got out of it. But it comes down to what am I going to do with them? Most of them, if I don't give them away, are going to be scrapped because they're just test prints and stuff, even on nice papers and things. But think it through properly, what you want. And what I would say is that in the UK, I actually do bespoke photography training on site covering printing. Now, if you want me to cover a small desktop printer and things like that, yeah, well, I can probably help you out. Probably easier for you. We'll look at one of my videos. But if you want a printer like this and you want to learn how to get the absolute best out of it, give me a call at Northlight Images, because I really enjoy the teaching side of it. Hopefully you got a clue from the videos and that of all the sort of stuff I can cover. But yeah, we're a bit short on architectural photography work, and this time of year, if you want something, if you want to learn how to use one of these, give us a shout. But anyway, if you've got questions, we'll travel further afield, but it's probably a bit expensive. If you've got questions, please do ask on the video, on the notes on the video. I'll put some links to other stuff, but questions are genuinely welcome, because that often gives me ideas for other videos to do and things. And I've got this here for a couple of weeks yet. So if you've got any specific questions about the P7500, let me know. Oh, and please do subscribe to the channel as well. Thanks very much.